Good morning for our bucket course. My name is Sarah Smith. I am the Director of Community and Government Relations. See, I don't even do it in the Office of Community Partnerships, Planning, and Research here at Grinnell College. Glad to be here each week with you on Wednesdays, and very happy and honored to partner with our CEC Bucket Course Committee, who thinks about who is presenting and what we're talking about each and every week. A couple reminders before we get started. Make sure if you do need to turn on your T-loop, your T-coil in your hearing aids, you do it at this time. And also maybe silence your phone. I always forget to remind you to turn them back on. So maybe just, make sure it's not on or on vibrators. Something quieter would be great. And we don't need to worry about cleaning up because the room stays like this. So we don't have to worry about that this time. So today, very excited, myself as well, to learn a lot more about someone who we see here at Bucket Course a lot, and I'm at Ambassadors with a lot. Ashley Sorensen is here to talk about the RSVP program, but then also we're going to switch at some point and talk a little bit about disaster preparedness as well, which is, it's that time of year, unfortunately. Knock on wood that we don't have, but we always need to make sure that we know what to do in case there is a weather emergency or any other type of disaster that might happen. So excited to learn more about both of those today. So would you please help me welcome Ashley Sorensen.
Okay, is it working? Oh, maybe you need to turn it on. There we go, now try.
Hello.
There we go. All right. Thank you guys so much for being here, and a quick shout out to all of our current RSVP volunteers that are in the room. So I'm so excited to see you here today as well. So thank you. My name is Ashley Sorensen. I am the RSVP Coordinator here in Poweshiek County, and so excited to share with you about some volunteer opportunities and really what the RSVP program is. Jamie Lane here, and what's really fun about Jamie, she is now the Disaster Director for Volunteer Iowa, but before she transitioned into that role, she was the RSVP coordinator here in Poweshiek County as well. So I started this job, it'll be about a year, coming up here in May, and so she really helped with my onboarding and getting to know and learn about the community. And in a little bit, she's going to focus a lot more on how you can personally prepare for a disaster if that happens to occur, which, like we said, knock on wood, it does not. But a little bit about myself. I moved here to, is that something? Okay. I moved here to Iowa a little over a year ago from Wichita, Kansas, where I spent the past 10 years there as an executive director at the YMCA. And when I saw this position come available, I was super excited because one of the things that I enjoyed most about my role at the Y was working with volunteers. And as a nonprofit organization, we did a lot of collaborations with other organizations and utilized volunteers. And then we also had a very heavy population. We called them active older adults that would come and take our silver sneaker classes and have coffee and time to chit chat, and really enjoyed interacting with that community. So it was a perfect fit. So that was a little bit about me. I moved here, like I said, in December. I do live in Newton, which is right down the street, as you guys know. I have 2 kids that are involved in schools and sports. And let you do, Jamie, a quick introduction.
Hi, thanks for coming, and I'm honored to be here. Jamie Lane, some familiar faces. I'm with Volunteer Iowa. I've been in Iowa my whole life, born and raised in Des Moines. My husband's grandfather has lived in Newton his whole life, so again, just down the road a little bit. But the disaster program manager, I helped in Greenfield, and that was my first actual response with the tornado they had in 2024. I've done volunteer work my whole life, and I always say volunteers are some of the best individuals you'll ever come across in humanity. But in Greenfield, that definitely came true. In Iowa, we had hundreds of people show up to help a small little community just help clean debris out of their farms, their farm fields and everything. So it really touched me. The job came open, and I said, I don't have any disaster experience, but I have a lot of volunteer experience and engagement. And because of that experience, it was just kind of a good fit. I love working with people. They said my job is getting everyone to play together nicely in a sandbox. And in disasters, I connect humans with resources and try to get them all to serve a greater purpose and work together collaboratively. So, but I have some preparedness, probably more information than you would want, but feel free to take any of the brochures or templates or plans before you leave too, and I'll talk a little bit later.
Great. Now that you know a little bit about us, let's learn a little bit more about the RSVP program. So RSVP stands for Retired Senior Volunteer Program. The good news, you don't have to be retired to participate. And the even better news is you do have to be 55 and better, as we call it, to participate. So we're looking for those that are in that category. And we provide opportunities for those to contribute to their communities through meaningful volunteer positions matched to their interests and skills. And I think that's the part that is so important, right? Taking the time as myself to get to know you, your passions, your areas of interest, and match those to an organization here in our community that could utilize your talents. It is a federally funded program by AmeriCorps seniors, so that's where we receive the most of our funding. Here, the RSVP program, the ones that are in red, the counties in red, are sponsored by Volunteer Iowa and the HHS department with the state. So we do receive some funding there as well. What's great about the RSVP program is that it takes place all over the country. So not just here in Iowa, but every state has an opportunity for RSVP programs. Every county is eligible to have an RSVP program. However, not every county does. So different organizations can apply for the grant to provide funding for staff to implement the program. When, I'll give you an example, like Jasper County has an RSVP program, but that is run by the Iowa State Extension Office is the sponsor for that program. So all over the state. So I want to spend just a quick minute here talking about some of the benefits of volunteering. A couple things that really come to mind. A couple things that really come to mind as we look at this slide. And this comes to us from the United Healthcare's Doing Good is Good for You study that took place. It states that 93% of volunteers reported improved mood. When you're volunteering, you're giving back, it makes you feel good. Additionally, 79% of volunteers said that their stress levels were lower after volunteering, indicating real benefits for mental health. And 78% felt more in control of their health, and 34% mentioned that volunteering helped them manage chronic conditions more. So getting out in your community and volunteering is not just beneficial to the community with the work that you do, but is a proven strategy for helping improve individual health. I want to spend just a quick minute talking about the benefits of organizations utilizing volunteers. And I encourage you to be thinking about organizations here in our community that could benefit from an increased use of volunteers. So one of those is expanding their capacity. Volunteers provide an additional workforce, allowing organizations to take on more projects, serve more clients, and expand their reach. Utilizing volunteers bring diverse skills and perspectives. Volunteers bring a wide range of skills, experiences, and perspectives. And then there's community connections. Volunteers often have strong ties to the community. The community engagement can lead to increased support, partnership, and visibility. And then an increased impact. When volunteers contribute their time and passion, your organization impact multiplies. So, who do we partner with? So RSVP focuses on a couple different organizations. So nonprofits, healthcare organizations and schools, and also government organizations and faith-based. So here in Poweshiek County, we do have relationships with all of these different categories, and in a minute, I'll dive more into those locations. So how does a partnership work? As the RSVP coordinator, I take the time, as I mentioned earlier, to get to know you, to find out your interests and your passions, and then match those with the volunteer station. RSVP program then does screening of all of our volunteers, both a state and national background check, and then making sure that no one is also on the sexual registry list as well. And then a benefit of being an RSVP volunteer, not just a really cool red t-shirt that you receive, but also we do provide mileage reimbursement. So some of our volunteer activities do require our volunteers or offer opportunities to transport people or items throughout the community. And so you do get mileage reimbursement when that takes place. We also provide supplemental insurance. So if you were to accidentally drop and break your glasses while you're volunteering, you're eligible for some reimbursement towards those. Same thing if you get injured while you're volunteering. And lastly, we provide some recognition for our volunteers, both throughout the community, individually, and then even at the state level with Governor Awards that takes place here coming up in a couple of months. And then the volunteer station. So this is the location where you actually go to volunteer. At that location, they provide the actual training. So they will tell you the ins and outs of that specific volunteer opportunity. They provide the supervisors to oversee the work that you are doing. And then they also help collect the timesheets because it is important for us to track those hours that our volunteers are doing so we can highlight the greatness that's taking place here in our community. And there's also some other data that is required, sometimes some surveys that are quick and easy that are done that are required for our grant. So those are kind of the two differences between the RSVP coordinator, my role. I kind of like to call myself a headhunter, right? Back in the day of trying to match people and their skills to jobs, but in the volunteer capacity. So we focus RSVP on 5 different areas actually. One is food and nutrition. So that could be delivering meals, food distribution, nutritional support, and in a minute we'll talk about some of those organizations here in our community. Youth support with pen pals or reading buddies in the after school or summer camp programs. And then of course, lining up and rocking some babies in a nursery. We all love and enjoy doing that. And then transportation. I think that's a big need for transportation in our community. We have a relationship with our Veterans Affairs of transporting vets to doctor's appointments in Marshalltown and Iowa City. Those that can't make it there without the help of volunteers. Companionship with activity support, reading help, and just a lot of other activities, right? Social isolation is so real. It is occurring well before the pandemic happened, and that definitely highlighted that. And it's so important that we can get out and reach our neighbors in need and have that human interaction. And then lastly, donation volunteer management. So this is some of the behind-the-scenes assistance that take place with different nonprofits throughout the community. So I want to dive in about the relationships that we have here in Poweshiek County. While I would say probably right now 90% or more of my work is focused here in Grinnell, but I'm desperately trying to provide more activities in Montezuma and Brooklyn. But most of these, as you'll see, are right here. So with the Food and Nutrition and the Arms Foundation, we have volunteers that help with the Tiger Packs program. There's probably some of you in the room that work with that activity. And then the Library Pantry. Grinnell Empowerment Command Center, so that opened not too long ago and is a new volunteer opportunity that we have. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, they provide a warm meal to the community and can utilize some volunteers coming in there and helping serve those meals. Even they have opportunities for folks to wash their clothes, and again, just that companionship at the command center. Grinnell Farm to Table is another one that is new with us as well. As you guys are aware, right around the corner here, and providing those food boxes that they put together and different volunteer opportunities there. And Micah is a really big one. We have probably more volunteers at that organization than our others right now, whether that's sorting food and weighing food as it comes in, or assisting in the pantry as community members come in. Youth support, again with the Orange Foundation, we have She Counts and Power Kids. Central Iowa Christian School, I want to highlight this one because one of my favorite volunteer opportunities is being a pen pal. And this activity is a very, very small commitment, but it has a huge impact. So once a month, you write a letter to a student at a local elementary school. Here in Grinnell, we have Iowa Christian School. And then they write a letter back to you. The end of the school year, we have a meet and greet where you get to meet the student that you've been writing to. So it's really, really a fun way. I'm excited that with the LINK summer camp program, that we'll be implementing a pen pal program there for 8 weeks over the summer. So a great one to get connected. We also have another new relationship with the Grinnell Area Arts Council. They have both an after-school program there. I mentioned LINK already. The 4-H program with Clover Kids and CASA as well. You guys are CASA, am I saying that around the court-appointed volunteer advocates. And transportation, we mentioned earlier about the Veterans Affairs and providing vets with rides. The Drake Community Library, we just established a relationship to bring books to those that are homebound. And we do the same thing at the Montezuma Library and the transportation at Micah for their food boxes. In companionship, another really fun area, both with the Drake Community Library, where we have tech time help, so helping community members with the technology and assisting the computers that they have available. Also at Grinnell Area Arts Council and the STU, they're open in the afternoon. From 4 to 8, they have college students that come in and volunteer, but we're looking for some community volunteers from 1 to 4 to assist with their activities. And probably one of my, not that I'm supposed to have favorites, but probably one of my favorites is going out to Mayflower and just the companionship of playing some games, doing some crafts, walking buddies, right? There's lots of residents that have limited mobility and helping get them out to the park when they do the music in the park in the summertime. NEI 3A, we have volunteers that make phone calls. Friendly callers is what it is. And so twice a month you make a phone call to check in on people that receive their food boxes. And then Unity Point Hospice. So we do have volunteers that help with folks on their final stages in life, providing care and compassion. And then lastly, the donation volunteer management. Again, both the Arts Council, Grinnell Historical Museum, lots of opportunities there to sort through all the artifacts, do some research, and help set up the different exhibits that they have. Montezuma Community Development, the Poweshiek County Extension Office, Renewed Hope as well. That's been a little bit more of a challenge to find some volunteers for that organization. They have a great group of volunteers already, but they're really looking for some folks that can help move some furniture, and as we know, furniture is really heavy. But we have that. And then this last one, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it, is Poweshiek County Emergency Management. And I'm really excited about the new relationship we have with Brian Paul and the Emergency Management Program. And this is how this all then relates to our disaster preparedness. So each community needs to have a VRC. What is a VRC? It is a volunteer reception center. So when there is a disaster that takes place in the community, Brian will call for this volunteer reception to come in place. And we need to make sure that we're prepared for that. But before that, a volunteer reception center is activated during disasters or emergency to safely and effectively manage spontaneous volunteers. Trained VRC volunteers help organize community support when it is needed most, right? So when a disaster happens, I'm starting to get into Jamie's category here, so correct me when I'm wrong, right? There's a lot of people that want to give back and help, but they don't know where to go. That's why we need to have some volunteers trained in advance so that they are prepared for when it occurs. So we'll have this volunteer reception center come together and meet, and they help ensure that volunteers are properly registered, screened, assigned, and briefed. That registration of volunteers is so important for the community because that's how the community then receives funding. Correct, Jamie? Yes. If it's a federal disaster, yes, let's get that right. If it's a federal disaster. And that supports community agencies during those high-need situations and helps maintain safety, organization, and accountability. So we're specifically looking for a couple different volunteer roles, and on May 9th, we're going to have an actual training. Our goal is to have trainings twice a year for our volunteers, for our volunteers to help when a disaster occurs. So greeters and registration, so just helping to greet people that come in, handing out the various forms, interviewing, matching up people with their skill set, assignment and agency coordination, so you're connecting volunteers with the requesting agencies, safety trainer, right? We want to make sure everyone is safe, going over the different safety and expectations and all that kind of fun stuff. ID and data entry, so tracking those volunteer hours, assessments, check in and check out, right? We want to make sure when volunteers are deployed out in the community that they come back as well, and that we're aware that they don't need additional help when they're out in the field doing their volunteer work. Maps and directions. So this is great for those folks that are really familiar with the county and the area, because often in a disaster, it might not look the same. Maybe the signs have blown down, so we need really some folks that can help explain and give directions for our volunteers when they're placed. And then also some runners that just help and assist with things that take place in the area. So anyways, that's more about the VRC. Again, if you're available and you're interested, if this is something of an area of interest, on May 9th, again, we'll be hosting that VRC. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Jamie now to talk a little bit more about preparing for a disaster.
Thank you. Lately, RSVP and AmeriCorps seniors across the nation is beginning to build momentum and get recognized for their work they've done. Probably back in the 1990s, prior to COVID, RSVPs, if you've seen a disaster at a tent where people would come register, it was the RSVP volunteers. They were wearing red vests and they were helping to organize. And then COVID hit and everyone kind of got burnt out. It took a toll on a lot of people. So volunteers are starting to regroup. We've had in Iowa alone, we've had an RSVP team. There was a child that had autism that went missing, and they couldn't find him. And so the emergency manager asked the RSVP team if they would come and just help register volunteers who were willing to come out and do searches. So they just identified who was coming up and put them in groups of 10 and then sent them off with a sheriff or a police officer to go help in the search. And they did find the little boy. And then another idea that the same group was asked to do 2 months later was a warming shelter, to just have a place and maybe set up a shelter for those who could come in. So the requests are wide, but you see RSVP engaging and just kind of they're local and those immediate things to help that emergency manager. But like Ashley said, the coordination is key. In Greenfield, Iowa, we had hundreds of people at we opened at 8 a.m., so I got there at 7, because I was gonna get all organized. And hundreds of people I could never get there early enough. They were already in the parking lot wanting to help. And if we just let them run around the town, first of all, it might be dangerous. We had no idea who was there. And so that's where it was really instrumental in utilizing a lot of these high schoolers, college students. We even had Carl Chevrolet from Ankeny. He sent 20 of his workers who clocked in that day. He said, grab a truck and go help Greenfield. So we were able to help document and send them to certain community members' farms to help get some of that debris picked up. So it is kind of fun and exciting work, and you get to meet some really great people. But taking control of the disaster on an individual level for preparedness, community preparedness, so that VRC work kind of helps organize the community, helps identify the needs. But how can you as an individual help? And again, I have a lot of documents over to the side that you are free to take home, because I still like paper copies myself, so of everything. So that's why I still print those. Your personal preparedness plan. A solid personal plan begins with your honest self-assessment. The more specifically you tailor your plan to meet your own needs, the more effective you'll be if it happens. Know your resources. So if everyone on their phone, even if you have an older phone, I believe, Alert Iowa is wonderful. Who in this room has Alert Iowa? Oh, so some of you do not. It is pretty handy dandy. It knows your location and will send you alerts. So I live in Ankeny, and yesterday, I don't know if you've seen in the paper, but there was an incident at the school right around the corner from me with a vehicle. My phone texted me to let me know not to travel that path, that there was an incident. So it made me aware that that road was closed and there was kind of an emergency going on. Alert Iowa utilizes that for if there's a tornado warning, if there's a shelter that'll be open, but it lets you know, especially in the middle of the night or in the morning, and you're like, hear the thunder rolling or the storms, you're like, oh, I need to be concerned, and it alerts your phone. So it is a very good resource. Ready.gov is a website that has thousands of resources. Maybe only hundreds, but if you want to know more specifics on information on how to be prepared. Access your needs. Consider, so as an individual, I've learned in this role that I have glasses. So when I have my glasses on, I can see where I'm going. I know the roads, I can read the signs. If my glasses were to break or get knocked off my head, I might not know how to get to the shelter or which evacuation route to take. Or, I mean, everything's kind of a blur. I can see about 5-10 feet in front of me, otherwise it gets blurry. So just consider you as an individual and maybe things that you might need. Medications, medical equipment, mobility limitations, communication preferences, a kind of a self-assessment. And so I don't forget, there's PrepWise, and it's a University of Iowa program. Is anyone familiar with PrepWise? Have you heard of that term? It's AmeriCorps members, and if you would like, I can give you information where they could come and actually speak to a group if you'd be individual, but they do individual disaster preparedness assessments with you for free, and they will sit down. That is their whole program. So I do want to point that out, and it's Disaster PrepWise, if you look it up and it's University of Iowa, so they're not too far away. Let's see. Okay, so then once you've decided what your needs are, your assessments, build your kit. The recommendation is a 3-day kit. You can get overzealous and do 7 too, but start small, maybe with the 3-day kit. If you have any water, non-perishables, those usually in a disaster, I shouldn't say this out loud, but usually bottled water becomes something that gets donated quite frequently, but maybe it's good to have some. But the prescription medications, that's a big one to keep in mind, because that might be hard to have access to if the pharmacy's closed or shut down. Just even knowing what you need and having that documented, because usually just go to the store and you get your refill, and sometimes you forget how many milligrams or what your dosage is. First aid kit, a flashlight with batteries, copies of important documents. One of my tablets over there is green, and that's all on your financial stuff. In Greenfield, mind you, there were some homes where everything was blown away. So I sit there and think about my home, and if I lost my previous tax forms, some of my account information, my routing numbers, there's some paperwork that I have in safe places, but it's probably good to have a copy of it and maybe stored at a loved one's house or in a safe deposit box or something. That would help. Add personal essentials, extra hearing aid batteries, because those go out in the blink of an eye. A manual can opener or mobility aids. Develop your plan. Decide in advance where you would go, how you'll communicate with your loved ones, and how you'll manage those needs. Write your plan down, but definitely talk about it with someone you trust and review it at least once a year. In Iowa, a lot of people, the thought is, oh, the sheltering, people just go stay with loved ones. Well, if that's, did I talk too loud? Okay. If that's the case, make sure your loved ones know your plan, who you're going to stay with. The right hand talks to the left hand, so to speak, so they're not wondering where mom or dad is in a panic. This is a little tip. If there's an access to a laminator with key contacts, your medical information, and you can just keep that with you at all times. That makes things a little helpful. And then building a support network. This is something else. It's not just about you, but your neighbor. And my job is it's a little daunting. If there is a disaster that comes through and we are trying to locate individuals, I wish that we had a little registry that had a little checkbox where we had everybody's information. We'd be like, yep, safe, safe, safe. That doesn't exist. But if you have your network and you have your little phone tree, and I know in this community especially, you watch out for one another. I'm getting excited to see my voice is getting louder. And it is like it's the city clerk or the neighbor down the hall that makes sure that Bob, Joe, and Mary are taken care of. It's nice to know that network and make sure, especially if you have limitations or you leave this session today and your neighbor down the hall does have limitations, make sure they've identified or have a network partner or someone that's going to check on them or say, hey, what about Mary? Did we get her out safe or get her medication or what she needs? Communicate your plan. Boy, that's little writing. I apologize for that. I'm not sure who can read that. I'll read these then. Identify your network. Use family members, close friends, neighbors, caregivers, community organizations such as your place of worship, senior center, or local civic group. Having multiple contacts at varying distance ensures someone can reach you. Communicate your plan. Share your plan with your network, your friends, your neighbors, where your kit is. If you do have medicines, like where is that? Or where's your list of medicines? Where you're gonna plan to go and what specific help you might need. And when they know what to expect, they can help respond. Check in regularly. So if there is a disaster, what happens? All the friends and family, Mom, are you okay? I've seen that big storm go through. Or answer those phone calls and make sure you let people know you're safe. And then if you're calling on other people, hopefully they do the same too, because otherwise you create some panic. Simple daily calls or even just a text message saying, I'm safe, nothing really happened here. It can confirm safety and coordinate assistance. And then know your resources. Learn about emergency shelters, transportation, any assistance. That Alert Iowa app, if nothing else from today, download that app. But also, when you look for resources, the EMA office on Facebook, if anyone's on Facebook and you want verified information, either the sheriff's office or your emergency management, Poweshiek Emergency Management, they will put stuff. We're having food today at this church. Donations are going to be here. We're going to have a meeting here. If power and that is out and there is no Facebook or anything like that, what the county emergency managers usually do is they will put up wooden posts with a bulletin board and at certain locations in the community, and you go to that corner daily and see the updates. The trick is, how do you identify those locations ahead of time? Because it'd be great, but then are they going to be accessible? But just know that those billboards are somewhere in the community, multiple places that you can go see a printed paper if there is without power. So, let's see here. What's going on here? Your community checklist. So no one should face disaster alone. A strong personal network combined with awareness of local resources increases safety and resilience for older adults before, during, and after. So you're at minimum, they say, write down at least 3 emergency contacts, share your evacuation or your plan, who you're going to go stay with a family or a family member or friend, register with your local special needs registry if applicable, locate your nearest emergency shelter ahead of time before you leave your house. So if there is shelters, make sure you know where you're going and the best path to get there. And the Alert Iowa app, and schedule a check-in call with your support network. That was it. But I'm sure there's some questions. Thank you all. And again, if you'd like that prep-wise information, if you'd like a whole session on that or individual planning, we'd be happy to share that too.
Thank you, Jamie. A couple things that I didn't mention more about the RSVP program. One, there's no cost to participate in this program, either as a volunteer or as a volunteer station. I encourage you guys to be thinking about friends and family that might benefit from volunteering and share with them information about this program. On your table, it is kind of a brief overview, and it also has my contact information. The other thing that I didn't mention is, right, the flexibility with this program. You can volunteer 30 minutes once a month. You could skip a couple of months, right? It's really based upon your schedule and your availability. I send out emails once or twice a month, maybe sometimes a little bit more, about new opportunities that become available in the community. For example, just this morning I sent out an email about Read Across Iowa and the need for a handful of volunteers to help at the Montezuma Elementary School with that program this coming Tuesday. So it's really something that if you see something that strikes your interest with those emails, you just email me back and say, yes, I want to learn more about that, and then I tag you with that volunteer organization. So I just wanted to share that bit of information with you as well. Right. Any questions?
Well, I have a question to get us started. So, seeing the different types of volunteer opportunities, what if someone is already doing those? Why would they just keep? Well, I guess I'm personally kind of wondering why would person sign up through RSVP versus just going to those organizations and just volunteering that way? Or what are the benefits? What are those things I'm not thinking about that are important to sign up through the RSVP program?
Great question, and ultimately it's my goal to get new volunteers in the community volunteering with organizations. However, if there's existing volunteers that are already helping, I'll give you an example. Farm to Table has a great set of volunteers. They are not RSVP volunteers, even though they meet the age requirements for that. They are welcome to join because a couple of those benefits, right? The supplementary insurance, right? So if there was to be an accident or injury to occur, you have that. If they're transporting, then they want that mileage reimbursement. Interesting about that mileage reimbursement is some people are like, oh, I don't need it, but you could also accept it and but donate it back to the organization that you're volunteering for, right? So it's there and it is available, and most importantly, you get a really cool red t-shirt.
I think it also, I'll put a little plug in for my VP, Monica Chavez Silva, is actually one of the commissioners on the Volunteer Iowa Commission Board at the state level, and I think it does a really great job of tracking our volunteers across the state of Iowa. Sure, at each organization can absolutely tell you how many volunteers, but honestly, as a former executive director, maybe that's not true because you're just trying to do the actual programs and projects. You don't have always the time to track all the volunteer hours and the volunteers themselves too. So I just wanted to put a plug. Just think about it if you're, maybe, I know you talked about new volunteers, but I also think there's some benefit to registering through, the RSVP.
Yeah, definitely, and I appreciate that. It is because, right, we want to, my goal is when I'm no longer in this position, hopefully years from now, that there is a great database and resource for this community of people that want to engage and help and make a difference. We have lots of volunteers that are just neighbor-to-neighbor volunteers that are not in any type of structured program, and that is so important. We have a lot of volunteers that aren't in the RSVP program that are volunteering. We want that. But wow, wouldn't it be cool to be able to say, here is a great resource of people that are giving back to the community. And honestly, and sometimes this is hard for us to do, let's brag about the great stuff that's taking place right here in Grinnell with all the volunteer work that is occurring. And I just want to share one more thing, right? While I focus mainly on those 55 and older, when I come across someone that's not in that category, I still match them up. We don't necessarily go through the background and screaming, but I'll send that connector email, getting them connected to that organization that they want to volunteer for. Because sometimes it is kind of overwhelming. You want to give back to your community, but you don't really know where to start, and that's where I can come in and help.
Do you ever get involved with the SHIP program? Do you ever help them get volunteers?
Yes. So, in fact, the SHIP program, correct me with the one if I'm wrong, is that the one helping with taxes? Or SHIP is the Medicare, thank you. I don't know why I get those two programs a little bit confused, but the answer is yes. We do have a relationship with SHIP on a kind of a state level as well. I've had some communication here locally, and they are in need of some volunteers to help with the scheduling. So to be a SHIP counselor, you do have to go through some extensive training to be qualified on giving, sharing that information on what insurance information to accept. There's less training to help schedule individuals that call in and want that assistance with a certified SHIP counselor. So we are looking for some volunteers for both of those areas. So yes.
I have another question. Going back to your training that you had coming up, where is it? How would you sign up for that? Just kind of a little bit more in depth about how to get engaged and involved in the, sorry, I'm forgetting the acronym right now, to the VRC. Yes.
Yes. We have a relationship, obviously with the college, but a community volunteer, Angie, what's Angie's last name? Thank you. And literally we were just confirming the date with Brian Paul, and our original location at the library was already booked, but she was able to schedule some location at the college. I don't have that exact location on top of my mind.
That's okay. Actually, it's in the Humanities and Social Studies complex, and it's in the middle of, it's in the multi-purpose room in the middle, so that's the brand new building on campus. We'll make sure that you have the address and it's noted, but I think, you're just getting...
Yeah, we literally just finalized that. I will have some flyers that will be available for that. I'll post throughout the community. Our chamber is awesome. They have a site where you can put different special events that are taking place. We'll have it posted on there as well. And then I do have a flyer here, or a clipboard where you can put your contact information, then I can email you directly and make about that. Great.
I do want to make a plug for that training and think about our disaster response here at Grinnell. As someone who helped when we had our derecho with managing volunteers, I really wish we had this more set up than we did at the time. And so I really appreciate the focus that we're doing right now to make sure that we're setting that up, because it does really make a difference after disaster. A lot of times after disasters, communities can receive federal funding that you were talking about to help with the cost of the cleanup. And but part of that funding comes from also knowing how many volunteers helped with it. So yeah, on the flip side of this now, I wish I would have known all this was, and that's okay. You know, it's, you learn, after the fact, but it is something that's really important to have a network set up. Yeah, I just want to plug that.
For 2024, it was $30 an hour. So we had the flooding in the northwest Iowa, and we had Greenfield tornadoes, and those were both federally disasters. Every documented hour that we were able to capture was $30. So even when we had a volunteer, we had people that had friends and they were going in to help a friend clean up their home. By golly, we documented that because that was volunteering. Yes, it was a friend, but they were helping to get their home back in order. So $30 an hour, it was over $1 million they were able to submit. So.
Yeah, because when it happens, I mean, I remember the derecho, so many people wanted to help and we were all excited about it. And I wish we would have had it. I mean, I love a good spreadsheet. I definitely had spreadsheets as to where people were going, but it wasn't exactly what the government needed, which I totally understand. I was just someone keeping a spreadsheet and where people were going and how many hours they worked. So again, that's in partnership with David Paul for the Poweshiek County Emergency. Brian, what did I say, David? That's the wrong, sorry. Jeez, Brian. David Paul's at the hospital. Okay, anyway, so, but anyway, definitely make sure you're connecting with that group because he's a great resource for us to use. Okay, wonderful. Well, please help me thank Jamie and Ashley for being here today. A couple of things I wanted to make sure were on your radar coming up. First of all, this coming Friday, Coffee with the College resumes. We're back from spring break at the college, and this Friday is Susan Bailey from the Grinnell College Museum of Art. She will do a presentation on a trip to DC some of students had recently taken for museum studies. So it'll be great to hear that adventure and the good work that Susan does in the museum and with those museum studies students. I also wanted to draw your attention to a couple more of the bucket courses that are coming up. I do have a new flyer out in the hallway which has all of April set up and ready to go. On April Fool's Day, April 1st, we will have a presentation from Phil Jones from the library, Grinnell College Library, and we'll talk about a range of writing and more of Iowa's rich literary history. So I'm excited to hear from Phil. The following week, I'm super excited. Thanks to the first bucket course that we did, we will be able to welcome back Abe Goldstein and to talk about his band, the Java Jews, and and just the history of music. So excited to welcome Abe back. He was so excited to have a chance to be here and then to come back. And then we have a 3-part series to finish April out with J.R. Paulson about fish stories. These look very, very interesting. A wide variety of different stories from the Great Lakes. As you know, he grew up in Michigan and is very passionate about a wide variety of things, but one of those is stories from the Great Lakes. So excited to welcome him back. One more thing, also in the hallway, there is a flyer for our next open book series that's coming up the first Tuesday of April in the evening here. And the two people that are the featured books for that are out on a poster in the hallway. Please, 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 I hope you come to this event. I maybe not do a great job of describing what this is, but it is a program through Cultural, a nonprofit in Des Moines, and it's individuals, and we did a session like that, the very first bucket course here, and Abe was one of those books. The books are people telling their stories, and it's just really, really powerful and a great connection and a way to build community, to learn more about those that live here with us in Central Iowa and their journeys and learning from their experiences. So I really, really encourage you to think about that and come to that at the beginning of April, that first Tuesday of April. I think it's the 7th maybe. So the poster is out there. Please mark your calendars for that. But it's so great to see everyone. Thank you for being here today. I hope to see you on Friday, and have a great rest of your week. Thank you.